You're watching the North Carolina Players Show on Fan Media Network. The next game coming up is at Georgia Tech on Wednesday, December 30th. Let's just talk about Georgia Tech in general. When you played, who was their best player that stood out to you?
Well, Georgia Tech always had good teams my first 4 years. You know, my first year they had Dennis Scott, who was a three-point shooter. I think my freshman year we struggled to guard the three-point line. And then freshman year they had Kenny Anderson and Dennis Scott. They really didn't have the dominant big guys. I think they had Malcolm Mackey. And then going into my senior year, they had James Forrest, who was a dominant wing player, kind of a tweener 3-4. And they had Travis Best, who was a great guard. They always had great guards coming out of New York. So for some reason, Georgia Tech was always able to get that player of the year in that point guard. And so that was the challenge, just keeping those guards out of the paint and making plays for their teammates.
Yeah. And what was your were you in that game when Dennis Scott hit the corner three off a I think you fouled on purpose and you couldn't get the ball?
No, that was I think that might have been the year before I came in. That might have been 89, 90. Yeah.
Okay. I did that game with Woody Durham and I remember that situation. Coach Smith fouled. They made the foul shots, and then they stole the inbounds pass. When I started, they weren't very good. Georgia Tech wasn't very good. It was the year before Bobby Cremins got there. They had a Brooke Stepp was a good player, played in the NBA. They had a center named Lee Goza. And you know how at the start of the second half, when the other team has the ball, we like to press and deny the ball in bounds. So it got them rattled. This was in Chapel Hill. And Lee Goza broke into the backcourt and caught the ball and then proceeded to go up and lay it in to his own basket. And, and he had one of the best lines of all time. He was asked after the game, Lee, what were you thinking? Why did you score in Carolina's basket? And his response was money. He said, well, my mom always wanted me to score for the Tar Heels. So fast forward the next couple of years, and then coach, you talk about great guards. Bobby Cremins recruits Mark Price. And, then they get Bruce Dalrymple. And they got a couple other players. And Mark Price was probably one of the best players. I think he was the leading scorer in the ACC as a sophomore. I think he scored about 20 a game. A little guard, tough as nails, quick release, and obviously had a great NBA career. So Bobby Cremins really launched that program with you, like you said, with guards, and had Mark Price, had Kenny Anderson, had Travis Best. He had some great teams and great players at Georgia Tech. How did your teams do against Georgia Tech? Did you win them all, or do you remember any losses?
Yeah, I know we lost my senior year in the ACC tournament. Unfortunately, Derek Phelps got hurt in the Virginia game, weren't able to play. And James Forrest had an ACC tournament that, for the history books, kind of between him and Travis Best, they just had their way with us. And anytime you play Virginia, it's a physical game. So we were beat up pretty much that game going into the Georgia Tech game in the championship without, our coach on the floor and Derek Phelps.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so what do you see of this Georgia Tech team? What have you seen so far, and what's your evaluation of the team?
I watched a little bit of the Georgia Tech Kentucky game, and the challenge for us, I believe, is, again, can we guard their perimeter players? Man for man inside in the post, I think we got that handled. But are we going to be able to contain Georgia Tech off the bounce on that first dribble? They have a good little guard, kind of similar to the NC State guard that wants to get into the paint, make plays, capable of making big shots, and that's going to be the challenge. Can we get more out of Leaky Black defensively? Can we, our young guards, control the tempo?
Yeah. Well, I think that guard you're probably talking about is Jose Alvarado.
Correct.
He had 29 points in their last game against Delaware State, gave us fits last year in the Smith Center. Josh Pastner, who I've known for a long time, Josh was just a hustler. His dad ran AAU tournaments in Houston. Josh ended up being a walk-on at Arizona, then like a graduate assistant, and just really hustled his way, and one of the nicer guys you want to meet in coaching. That kid Moses Wright inside is one of the more impressive post players I've seen this year. And like you said, we have done a good job because of our size, and I think Brooks is probably an underrated defender because he did a great job on SARS at Kentucky, and I think we did we've done a pretty good job on other post players this year. But this kid's a little unique. He's athletic, got long arms, can finish around the basket, step out, face a little bit. He can be somewhat of a challenge for us. Tell me any stories that you had when you played against Georgia Tech. The one thing I remember that I hated about Georgia Tech was that freaking tunnel you had to run down and then back up.
And then walk up 3 flights of stairs to the locker room, I believe.
I mean, it like, we always laughed. You know how Coach Guthridge would always run to the locker room at halftime and be like the first one up, and like, I don't think he was the first one up at halftime or after the game at Georgia Tech, because it felt like it took you a couple of minutes, and that was like a 100-yard incline. Any memories of playing at Georgia Tech for you? Any good or bad memories? Of course they in the new arena now, but I still think they make us walk back. The opposing teams walk to that old locker room. But like you said, going up those stairs, running up the tunnel, you felt the acid in your legs, and you always get back to the locker room and try to rub it out. And then you would always want to, so it cuts time off your preparation for you making your second half adjustment. And then you wanted to leave earlier so you get back down to the floor and sit down a few minutes before the game started. So it was always a challenge, climbing the mountain and then taking the 2 or 3 flights of stairs to your locker room. Yeah. That was a little bit of a home court advantage. I think one year when I was coaching in North Carolina, we ended up getting a room that was off closer to the court, where it wasn't a locker room, but it was like a training room where we used that, so we didn't have to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. The other thing that I feel when we play at Georgia Tech, since there are so many Carolina graduates in Atlanta, and there's other things to do for Georgia, in Atlanta, so the fans maybe aren't as, I don't want to say dedicated, but as passionate. So when we played at Georgia Tech, I felt it was more of a home court advantage for Carolina because there were a lot of alums there, and there was a lot of Carolina blue in the arena. Did you sense that when you played?
Well, I didn't quite sense it as a player, but I went back the last 2 years because I was at Clark Atlanta and had the opportunity to go to both of those road games. And it was a Carolina party. All you saw was Carolina blue, from the concession stands to the restrooms to the sitting in the stands. It was a Carolina type atmosphere, going into Georgia Tech to play basketball.
Yeah.
To host a player show or appear as a player on a player show, simply create a profile on Fan Media's iOS app or website. Select your teams and make a short intro video on your phone. Show hosts, reporters, former players, and superfans can use our Get Verified feature and make an intro video as well, and our mobile newsroom staff will reach out.